Hello everyone, this is Joanne and a very welcome to you. I hope you're having a wonderful day. So in this episode, I would love to share this messenger bag project with you. This is quite a handsome bag, pretty large in size. It's about 12 inches wide and 13 inches long. It has a front zipper pocket, of course magnetic snap closure, and inside we've got one zipper pocket plus 3 slip pockets as well. For the fabric, we will use some 2.5-inch strips. So feel free to use scraps or leftover jelly roll strips. For the body of this bag, I use foam stabilizer as the interfacing, the Soft and Stable brand. Foam stabilizer is a great interfacing to use if you want to add better structure to your bag. And what I love about foam stabilizer also, it's really easy to work with. The reason I don't use foam stabilizer as much is because a lot of time I design soft bags or slouchy bag, and also it's a little bit more expensive. That's why I save it for the more special project. If you are tight on budget or you just don't have foam stabilizer handy, you can also use fleece or batting, whatever it is that you have on hand. Like this messenger bag here. For this bag, I use quilt batting as the interfacing. So it is more soft, yet I still love this bag and I use this quite often as well. And as usual, in the comment section below, I put the timestamps of each part of the video. So if you click on that time link, it will directly take you to that particular part of the video. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and without further ado, let's get started. First, we're gonna work on the flap. So lay out 5 strips measuring 12 inches long by 2.5 inches wide. Lay them out just like so. You may arrange them as you like. And then go ahead and sew with 1/4 inch of seam allowance. Press the seams towards one side. For the flap, I'm going to interface this with Fusible woven interfacing and the Fusible fleece. And of course, you need to cut the Fusible fleece 1/2 inch shorter. So as usual, I'm going to fuse the woven interfacing first and then followed with the Fusible fleece afterwards. So here I've got my flap already fused with Fusible fleece. Next, we're going to make smooth curves at the bottom of this flap. So take some kind of rounded shape object. I'm using my thread spool here. You can also use a coffee cup or a bowl, something like that. Simply place the object right on the edge and then trace the curve and do the same on the other side. And then cut following the curved lines that you traced. So along the side and bottom edges of this flap, we're going to apply piping. So the piping that I'm using here is a pre-made piping. This one is from Wright's. I believe you can find this pretty much everywhere from Joanne up to Walmart. If you've never installed piping before, fear not, it's not as difficult. As long as you've got zipper foot, you can do the job pretty easy. Place your piping on the right side of your flap, aligning the edges of the tape with the edges of your flap, just like what I'm showing you here. You want to secure them in place with some sewing clips. When you approach the bottom corner, since this area is curvy, you want to snip the tape of your piping just a little bit, about 1/4 inch. Be careful not to cut through the stitches. So you want to do this around the curve area. This will help the piping to lay flat. Place some sewing clips and then go ahead and do the same with the other side. Once everything is secure, go ahead and sew this in place. So you want to use your zipper foot. Obviously, you can also use piping foot if you happen to have one. Align the edges of your zipper foot right next to the coating of the piping. You may need to adjust the position of your needle. I move my needle a slight towards the left just to make sure that I could stitch as close as I can to the piping, or you can simply follow the stitch line of the piping itself. Now once you've got to the curve area here, you may want to slow down a little bit and then simply maneuver your fabric and you may sometimes need to pivot. Here I've got my piping already sewn in place. Now prepare the flap lining. Obviously the lining should be exactly the same size as the flap exterior. So what I did, I simply used the exterior of my flap as the template and then trace the lining. You also want to fuse the lining with the fusible woven interfacing. So we're going to attach the male magnetic snap first to the flap lining. Measure 3 inches from the bottom of your flap, right on the center. Use your fabric marker and then place a mark right on that 3-inch point. And you want to do the same with the wrong side. Now fuse a scrap of interfacing or fleece on the wrong side. Now take the washer and align the center hole with the mark that you created earlier. And then trace the 2 side lines with your fabric marker. Use your seam ripper or scissors and cut through the side lines that you traced. Be careful not to overdo it though. Now take the male magnetic snap and then insert the 2 prongs through the 2 holes that you just cut. From the wrong side, you want to place the washer over the prongs and then use your thumbs or pliers to push the prongs towards the sides to lock them in place. Lay the flap exterior with the lining right side together and then use some sewing clips to secure them in place. Once everything is secure, we're going to sew this all around and we're going to sew from the external side. Simply follow the stitch line from the initial installment of the piping. And of course, you still want to use your zipper foot or piping foot. I still use the same setting, so move my needle just a slide towards the left. And this time, I simply follow the stitch line from the previous stitching line when sewing the piping. Once you've done sewing, you want to snip the curve area a little bit, about 1/4 inch. Be careful not to cut through the stitches though. This will help the flap to lay flat when you turn it inside out later. Turn your flap inside out and then poke the corners, make it nice and flat. You may also go ahead and press this with an iron on low setting. And voila, the flap is done. Alright, now we're going to work on the front exterior piece. Lay out 7 strips. You may use completely different pattern or color strips, or you may also match the second up to the 6 strips with your flap. So do as you like and what's pleasing to your eyes. And then go ahead and sew them together with 1/4 inch of seam allowance. Alright, so here I've got mine already sewn. So this piece here should be measuring 14.5 inches wide by 15 inches long. You also want to fuse this with the fusible woven interfacing. It's really important for you to do so just to make sure that your fabric will turn out really crisp, and it's going to be easier to make the zipper template and to work on the external zipper pocket. Now prepare your external pocket pieces and you want to fuse both of them with fusible woven interfacing. Draw the zipper template on the wrong side of one of your pocket piece. So your template should be measuring 7 by 1/2 inch, and then draw a line right on the center and then draw diagonal lines on both corners, just like shown on the screen right now. You wanna draw the template about 2 inches away from the top, and of course the position should be centered. And once you've done that, you wanna lay your pocket piece on the right side of your front exterior piece, about 2 inches away from the top. Obviously, you want to align the center of the pocket piece with the center of the front exterior piece. Secure them in place with some pins and then go ahead and sew along the outer lines. Then cut the center line and the two little triangles at the corners. And when you get to the triangle corner, just be careful not to cut through the stitches. Turn your pocket piece to the wrong side through the template opening. Smooth everything out, and then you want to go ahead and give this a quick press. And you should end up with something like this. Now prepare your zipper. Your zipper should be at least 7 inches long. I'm using an 8-inch zipper here. And as usual, I'm going to use my basting tape to baste the zipper. So I'm going to cut a couple of strips and place one on each edges of the zipper tape. And then peel the top layer off. Now if you don't have the basting tape, you can also baste your zipper simply with hand stitching. So do whatever works best for you. Place the template right on the zipper. Adjust the position if necessary. Make sure that the zipper is straight and neat. And then go ahead and sew along the edges. Take the other pocket piece and then lay that right side down, and then sew all around with 1/2 inch of seam allowance. And voila, the zipper pocket is done. Now it's time to work on the back exterior. So go ahead and lay out your strips just the same way as the front exterior. You will need 7 strips measuring 15 inches long. And of course you want to sew them together with 1/4 inch of seam allowance. And once you've sewn them together, you want to apply the Fusible woven interfacing on the wrong side as well. Now it's time to apply the foam stabilizer. So you want to use the sew-in stabilizer, not the Fusible one. And of course you can substitute this with other interfacing of your choice, but I recommend to use as well the sew-in kind of interfacing. Cut the foam stabilizer 1/2 inch shorter than your external pieces, so it won't be too bulky at the top and it will be easier to do the final top stitching later. Alright, now I'm going to place my foam stabilizer on the wrong side of my front exterior piece and then secure them in place with some sewing clips. Once you've done that, you're going to sew along the sides and the bottom with 1/4 inch of seam allowance. And here I've got mine already stitched in place. Now go ahead and do the same with the back exterior piece as well. Now we're going to attach the flap to the back exterior. So lay them right side together, center the position, simply match the 3rd strip of the flap with the 4th strip of the back exterior. Secure them in place with some sewing clips and then go ahead and sew with 1/4 inch of seam allowance. Measure and mark 1.5 inch squares from each bottom corners of your exterior shell and then cut. Now we're going to assemble the external pieces. So go ahead and lay them right side together, secure them in place with some sewing clips, and then sew the sides and the bottom with 1/2 inch of seam allowance. Open up the corner, match the seams, secure them in place with a sewing clip, and then sew with 1/2 inch of seam allowance. And of course you want to do the same with the other corner. Now turn your exterior piece inside out. Now we're going to attach the female magnetic snap. So close your flap and then position that the way you want it to sit. Once you're happy with the position of your flap, you want to mark the position where the hook of the magnetic snap is sitting. So use your fabric marker and make a little mark there. Now take the washer and then align the center hole with the mark that you just created. And then just like before, you want to trace the two side lines. Now take a scrap of interfacing and then you're going to place that at the very same spot on the wrong side of your external piece. So you can either fuse that, or maybe easier if you simply spray based, and then simply insert your hand in between the foam stabilizer and the wrong side of your front exterior piece and stick your interfacing there. Alright, now go ahead and cut the two side lines that you traced from the washer in between the foam stabilizer and the front exterior piece. This time though, you will need to hold the pocket out of the way just to make sure it won't get cut. So you want to cut this only up to the front exterior piece. So don't cut all the way through the pocket or through the foam stabilizer. Now go ahead and do the rest of the steps exactly the same way as when you install the male magnetic snap. And voila, your exterior shell is done. Now we're gonna work on the interior. So prepare two lining pieces. First we're gonna sew the slip pockets. So you wanna lay them right side together and then sew along the top and the bottom with 1/4 inch of seam allowance. Once you've done that, go ahead and press the seams open. Turn your pocket piece inside out and then go ahead and give this a quick press. Then top stitch along the upper top. We're gonna divide this pocket into 3 slots. So I'm gonna take my ruler and my fabric marker and then I'm going to measure 5 inches from one of the side and then draw the line with my marker and then do the same with the other side. Lay the pocket piece on the right side of one of the lining piece, about 3.5 inches away from the top. Secure them in place with some pins and then go ahead and stitch on the mark lines and the bottom as well. And here I've got my pockets already sewn. Don't worry about the sides here, it's gonna get stitched anyway with the side seams. If you wish to add the internal zipper pocket, you may simply follow the exact same steps when installing the external zipper pocket. The only thing that I did differently for the internal zipper pocket is I didn't fuse the pocket pieces with the fusible woven interfacing. And of course you will need to cut all the bottom corners exactly the same way as the exterior pieces. Now go ahead and assemble your lining, obviously pretty much the same way as the exterior shell. However, you want to leave about 6 to 7 inches of opening at the bottom. Here I've got my lining already sewn and here is the opening bottom. For the strap of this bag, we're gonna use 1.5 inch wide webbing strap and you will need a 1.5 inch adjuster slider, also 2 1.5 inch D-rings, or you can also use rectangle rings. For the strap anchors, you will need to cut from your webbing strap 2 strips measuring 3 inches long. Now you want to take the strap anchor and then insert that through the hole of the D-ring, just like so. Place that right on the side seam of your bag, just like that. Just center the position. Use a sewing clip to secure that in place and then go ahead and sew along the edges with 1/4 inch of seam allowance. Alright, now we're ready to assemble the bag. First we're gonna turn the exterior piece to the wrong side and then insert your lining into the exterior shell. So you want to make sure that the right side of the lining and the right side of the exterior shell are touching each other. And then go ahead and secure them in place with some sewing clips, starting from the side seams. So simply match the side seams Once everything is secured, go ahead and sew all around with 1/2 inch of seam allowance. I'm using my walking foot to do this job, although obviously the regular presser foot will do just fine. Since my walking foot is quite chunky, so I move my needle all the way to the left and use the 3/8 of an inch seam allowance gauge instead. Turn the back inside out through the opening hole. You want to neaten the edges, so simply give this a nice pressing all around. I like to use my seam roll, so I simply place it inside and then take my iron and press. It's much easier that way. Once you've done that, go ahead and do the final top stitching. So you can top stitch this either with 1/8 of an inch or 1/4 of an inch of seam allowance, whichever one's more comfortable for you. I use 1/4 inch of seam allowance for this project just to make sure that my needle will catch the foam stabilizer as I sew around. You may want to increase your stitch length since there's a lot of bulk. I use 3mm stitch length for mine. And I also recommend to use heavy duty needles such as denim size needle or microtex needle. Once you've done top stitching, you want to pull your lining out, find that opening hole, fold the raw edges in about 1/2 inch, and then go ahead and sew to close this opening. Once you've done that, put your lining back inside and voila, the body of your bag is done. Now we're going to work on the strap. So cut your strap somewhere in between 50 and 60 inches. I cut mine about 55 inches. Now first we're going to work on the raw edges. So you can finish the raw edges either with zigzag stitch, or if you have fray check or the liquid seam sealment, you can use that as well. I thought I have one laying around, but I just couldn't find it, so I'm just gonna do the zigzag stitch. Now take one of the end of the strap and then feed that through the adjuster from the wrong side towards the right side and then back to the wrong side. And you want to leave about a couple of inches of clearance there. And then go ahead and stitch 2 lines to secure this in place. So you want to sew back and forth for a few times to make sure that your strap has extra bond. Now keep the position of your adjuster this way with the stitch ends facing up like that, and then set this aside for now. Grab the other end of your strap and then feed that through one of the D-ring from the inside towards the outside, and then pull the strap through. Meanwhile, you're gonna make sure that there is no twist. Now feed the other end of the strap to the adjuster from the wrong side towards the right side and then back to the wrong side. Pull the strap through and then feed that to the other D-ring from the outside towards the inside. Again, you want to have about 2 inches of clearance, and then go ahead and stitch 2 lines to secure this in place. And voila, your bag is done. And that's all I have for you today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this video served you well, and I shall see you next time with another fun sewing and quilting project. Goodbye!